Let's face it, if you're a Transformers fan who has gone back to watch the G1 cartoon, seasons 1 and 2 of the cartoon gave us plenty of friendly Autobots. They would be great for roommates or co-workers, but they weren't hot. But then season 3 came around. In 1986, they got their sexy on, baby. And be honest with me, haven't you always wanted to f*** the shit out of this truck? I've done a similar experiment before with the Season 1 Decepticons, and even though I feel as though, for the most part, Autobots just never had the same type of appeal in that way, Season 3 was the era of the cool Autobot, and the cool Autobots, they know what they're doing. With nearly 50 Autobots introduced in the movie in the subsequent season, there were a ton of options when it came to potential partners. So just like before, we're going to be using the ever-trustworthy Ron Bond to John grading system, just as we do in all of our Cybertronian rankings. This time around, an S rank means marry that man right now. An A rank would be a good long-term relationship. B would be a solid enough relationship. C, maybe better as a fling. D, dump that loser. And as for F, that would mean you need a restraining order and potentially a passport. You are going to be on the run from this psychopath. With how much the Autobots vary during this era, it makes sense to just go ahead and start with the head of this organization, that being Hot Rod / RODIMUS Prime. Now, I want to say this right now. I'm going to give Hot Rod and RODIMUS their own sections, just because I feel like they have their own pros and cons. Depending on the era you found Roddy in, you're gonna have two very different experiences. Keep this in mind, I am basing all of this on how the characters appeared in the G1 cartoon, so I'm not factoring in IDW or Cyberverse or anything else. This is just the impression I get from these characters in the original animation. And with Hot Rod, I can honestly say I am not interested. He's perpetually a 22-year-old burnout. Yeah, sure, eventually he gets a little bit of responsibility and grows into Rodimus Prime, but the few times we see Hot Rod, he is impulsive, he's a hothead, he needs everyone to be aware of just how cool he is. Hell, when Cup is trying to calm the Dinobots down with the story, he's insisting on playing laser swords with some weird referee bot. He's a tryhard, he's moody, he's just a big kid, basically. I can't deal with a 22-year-old again. I'm sorry, I'm 26 now. My frontal lobe is fully developed. I'm not dealing with this shit no more, man. Hot Rod's a C. Rodimus is interesting. I'd argue that he has the exact opposite issues of Hot Rod. Rodimus is tired. He has a hard time getting around. The weight of the world is always on his shoulders. And yeah, he's going to be talking a lot about men's mental health because he's actually trying to get better, but he is very clearly a man dealing with depression. He's still grieving Optimus Prime, and feels as though he is a total imposter. It doesn't help that everyone around him has to keep bringing up how Optimus Prime was such a good leader. I want to be his friend. I want to be there for Rodimus Prime. I want to tell him, hey, you don't have to keep comparing yourself to Optimus. You know, he's dead, and you're the leader now. In fact, screw that statue. Let's get rid of that statue right now. Let's build a new statue to you, buddy. Like, I'd be that guy. I don't want to him. The simple fact of the matter is, Rodimus seems like he would maybe go for 30 seconds, and then there would be about 30 minutes of crying. And I'm just not into that, baby. Now we get to Ultra Magnus. And for some reason, people on this channel seem to think that I hate Ultra Magnus. Probably because in the mini toys of Ultra Magnus, I said that he is the perfect example of a red herring. He seems like he should be the perfect leader, but he doesn't have the same empathetic qualities that made Optimus the great leader. Magnus is a perfect soldier. He's a perfect lieutenant. He is a perfect second in command. He can't be the big boss. He would still be an S-rank partner. Are you kidding me? Ultra Magnus is so good. He is still empathetic. Is he empathetic and approachable on the level of Optimus? No, Magnus is definitely a little bit more closed off in some ways. He has a hard time opening up to people. But he's also selfless. He's willing to remain injured so that the Autobots can focus on helping others. He's brave. He's powerful. He's smart. He doesn't even have a selfish bone in his body. He is genuinely one of the single most positive example of the Autobots in any form of fiction. G1 Ultra Magnus is an ideal hero. He has a wonderful voice that sounds like Robert Stack, mostly because in the movie it was Robert Stack, and it's essentially as close to dating Optimus as you can get without making it feel like you're dating your dad. Oh, this is really friggin' weird. So usually I try to space out the really good partners, but now we're at RC. And RC's gonna get our second S rank? Usually we're way deeper into these videos before we get S ranks, but RC is very similar to Magnus in that there's just no downside. In the G1 cartoon, RC is incredibly smart, she is an unbelievably friendly character, she's as close to a parental figure as Daniel has a lot of the time. RC is willing to put her own life and well-being on the line to help anyone around her. She has a healthy respect for the Autobot cause while not being subservient to authority. She's a free thinker. She's just all around solid. She's good in ways that Ultra Magnus isn't. Ultra Magnus is going to be a lot more stable, but I'd argue RC is probably going to be a lot more emotionally available, and both of them are going to be perfect partners for different people. Then we get Springer. Springer is really tough for me. To be fair, I'm not a tremendous fan of the character, but I did go back and try to rewatch some of his Spotlight episodes just because I wanted to do my best to gauge him. He is very much just supposed to be Han Solo, so if you know Han Solo, you know Springer. And that makes me a bit worried, because if this is Legends Han Solo, Springer is going to eventually settle down and he's going to be a pretty solid partner and father. If this is canon Han Solo, he's going to be a deadbeat dad who runs out before the kid's even born. I'm going to just call it down the middle. I think Springer is going to be a B. I think he probably wouldn't ditch you and the kid, but he also probably isn't going to be the best parent or partner. Springer is selfish in a lot of ways. He is very much image conscious, and he wants people to have this certain idea as to who he is and how he acts. So in some ways, I think he's going to put in a lot of airs around you, and maybe potentially force you to also have some of those airs. But at the same time, I don't think he would be a bad partner. Maybe just not one you want to stick around that long. Oh hey, it's Cup! Cup is also going to get a B, and I'm not trying to make a joke here. It's because I don't know how much longer Cup is going to be around. Like, let's just be fair. Cup is old, ancient. He's older than Optimus and Ironhide, who were the previous old soldiers of the Autobot cast. He talks about aches and pains constantly. He's pretty accident prone, and if not accident prone, he has a bad streak of bad luck. I'm just going to say he's probably not going to be around for long. But at the same time, if you got in with him now, you could get in on that will, so B rank for Cup. S rank if you want the inheritance. Oh god, it's Blur. Okay. Blur's never gonna shut up. He's never gonna stop talking. It's going to be a constant barrage every single day. And I think that he would be emotionally available. That's the sad thing, is he probably would be a good partner when it comes to just trying to be an equal part of the relationship. But Jesus Christ, imagine listening to him like this, like Alvin and the Chipmunks on cocaine, every single moment of every single day. You would want to bash your head into a wall. I'm gonna give Blur a C. He's a good guy. If he could ever slow down, maybe then I'd give him a call. But as it is, I have too many good options to waste them on Blur. For what I hope are pretty obvious reasons, I'm not including Wheelie on the list. He's supposed to be a child. So we're going to pop over to the next Minibot in the group, that being Outback. Outback gets a D. I actually kind of despise Outback. He's just Crocodile Dundee with none of the charisma. And on top of that, he's a little bit of an asshole, just constantly trying to pick fights with people. It reminds me of Brawn, but whereas Brawn supposedly has a good heart underneath all that bullying, Outback I don't think has those redeeming qualities. He's just a punk, and as a result, I have no time for him. Then you get to Pipes. Pipes is fascinating. He's bookish, a little bit nerdy, And alongside that, he's one of the few Autobots in the cartoon who gets to issue the Autobots rollout command. Him, Optimus, RODIMUS. What a group Pipes finds himself in. In some ways, I think Pipes' biggest issue is just his general lack of confidence. He can be painfully shy at times, and alongside that, if we're going to take IDW into account, which I do just very lightly here, he's a little bit accident prone. I'm not going to hold that against him, I'm just going to keep that in mind. And as a result, I'm going to give Pipes an A. The reason I'm not giving him an S is because I know his type, and I'm not it. I'm afraid I'm not a triple changer with minimal kibble that turns into a boat. And because I can't be that for him, I don't know if I'm going to be the right partner for Pipes. Swerve! Thank God it's G1 Swerve, because if this was IDW Swerve, he would not be getting above an F. G1 Swerve is nothing. Like, he was around long enough for Trypticon to step on him. I suppose I could read his toy bio. There, it just says that he's a little bit clumsy. I'm going to give him a C. There's not enough here to make a better argument one way or another. Then you got Tailgate. Tailgate is friggin' weird. If you don't know Tailgate's whole identity in the G1 toy bios, he thinks that every single machine on Earth is sentient, and he wants to be Robo-Moses. He wants to save all of them, bring them all into salvation, and as a result, he is actively plotting a rebellion against humanity. The issue is his rebellion is being planned alongside refrigerators and lawnmowers. I'm sorry, Tailgate wants to bring about the singularity. I don't want to imagine what he could do if he ever got in contact with a fridge that has AI in it. Moving away from Minibots, let's talk about a true class act of the Autobots, Skylinks. And just to be clear, I'm only counting him as one character. I know that Sky and Lynx can operate on their own, however they have the same personality and have the same voice, which makes me think that they have some form of hive mind. I'm just gonna say Skylinks is his own boy. And what a boy he is. Pompous, yes. Full of himself, absolutely. But full of life? Yes! He is the zest of life, the pinnacle of what the Autobots can be. There is no adventurer greater than Skylinks, no mind as sharp, no power as mighty. He is the Autobot cause. And in fact, he was the last one to fall for the hate plague. Yes, he has an ego, but he has earned that ego. He backs it up every step of the way. And besides, he's the archenemy of Predaking, the most powerful Decepticon combiner. Not only is he smart, not only is he strong, not only is he fast, but he has a niche that no other Autobot can fill. He's transportation and the final line of defense. Broadside is up next. He's getting a D. Broadside just has a lot of problems. He's a boat that gets seasick. He's a plane that's scared of heights. And he's going to make it your problem. He is a grouch through and through and tends to lash out over the smallest of things. Let's move away from the proper Autobots and look towards Paradron to see a couple of their inhabitants. Sandstorm is getting a fucking G. No. So G1 cartoon, he seems okay, I guess. I think it's really weird how he's supposed to be a pacifist, and yet he is more than happy to join the Autobot war effort and kind of gets a kick out of it. And I know I said I was going to limit looking at other universes, but I think it's worth bringing up. In the Marvel comic and the IDW comic, Sandstorm is treated like the worst of the worst, a cautionary tale of what the Autobots could be if they became just as brutal as the Decepticons. Hell, in IDW, Sandstorm is a domestic terrorist. He caused a bombing against civilians because he wanted to frame the Decepticons and try to reignite the war after it had ended. Sandstorm's a legitimate monster. I don't want to be near him, and I definitely don't want him to see me naked. I don't know why, but that feels like it's going to be part of a grand plan that ends with Milwaukee being destroyed. Then you get Lifeline, aka the Paradron Medic. She is the total opposite of Sandstorm. A pacifist who's willing to put her life on the line every single day. She has no selfish bones in her body. She is willing to make the ultimate sacrifice at a moment's notice. There is no life too small, no challenge too big, no danger she isn't willing to take on. In many ways, she's almost too noble. I notice reading her bios and her media appearances, people talk more about the things she's done, as opposed to who she actually is as a person. It's hard to gauge her personality, how she interacts with people. As a result, I'm going to give her an A. If we got a little bit more personality from her, it would probably be an S. It kind of feels more like I'm dating Abraham Lincoln. Like, I know you're important, but I would really like to guess what your favorite movie is, and right now I feel like you're just going to hit me with another heroic speech. Oh shit, remember Playback? Nobody does. He's the one who let the Decepticons on Paradron and he wound up dying. I'm going to give him a D. He's just an idiot. You go on a date with him, he's going to find a way to choke on air. Well, that's one Autobot-friendly planet down. Quite literally, because Paradron blows up. Why don't we move over to the planet Ajunk and see what the Junkions are getting up to? Starting with Wreck-Gar. He's an elf. Jesus Christ, can you imagine trying to actually talk to Wreck-Gar? Especially nowadays? It would just be skibbity toilet bullshit. He'd be hitting me with TikTok audios. It'd be like talking to a 4-year-old that found mommy's iPad. Wreck-Gar has nothing wrong with him. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's done good things for people. I'm not sitting in a room with him. I'm not going to dinner with him. And good God, I don't want to know what his pillow talk would be like. You know what? Screw it. It's going to be a blanket grade. Nancy, F. Junk heap, F. Scrap metal, F. Trash bin, F. Short Junkion, and yes, that's his name, F. But then there's one Junkion who's different. So different that we're not even sure that he is a Junkion, but he definitely seems to at least be friends with the Junkions, and he knows Wreck-Gar. It's Null A. Null A is the bot that takes first aid in during the ultimate weapon. He's the one that actually helps First Aid come to terms with who he is in the war, and he seems like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. He speaks and moves like he's an older gentleman. He definitely has a little bit of Midwestern energy to him. As a result, I'm going to give him a B. I just don't have enough to gauge if he would be a good romantic partner, but at the very least, he seems like a very generous and empathetic bot, and that has to count for something. We're getting to a new subgroup now, this being the Autobots that come from the past. Season 3 told the backstory of the Transformers race, going into their creation under the Quintessons and the multiple civil wars they had endured. And as a result, we actually got to meet a number of the ancient Cybertronians. So it only feels right to bring them up here. Starting with Sentinel Prime. The only Sentinel Prime to actually be heroic, still spoken of in the same terms as Optimus Prime in many ways. He seems like a noble, brave leader who ultimately was killed just due to a bad stroke of luck. I'm going to give him a B, just because in the way people are still so reverent to him, and how even the Matrix puts him on the same level as Optimus Prime, even if we don't know much about his personality, those parallels and that level of praise at least implies he would have been a decent person to be around. A3 and Beta are a little bit hard. For one thing, they're both super cool. They're amazing rebels who went to war with the Quintessons and won. Alongside that, A3 has a mustache I would love to ride all day. Beta also seems super cool with her bow and arrow. There's just one problem with A3 and Beta, and it's not the fact that A3 is Alpha Trion. I can deal with the fact that he doesn't age well. The issue is that A3 and Beta are a couple, and it would feel strange to get into the middle of that. Maybe they'd be open to it, I don't know. Maybe polyamory is more accepted on Cybertron. I'm not judging. But at the same time, most of the G1 characters don't actually have relationships, and they're not with each other when they do. As a result, trying to say, oh, I think I would be a good boyfriend to A3 or a good boyfriend to Beta, it definitely feels like I'm getting in the middle of something. I'm just going to give them an A, because I think they would be a great duo to be in a relationship with, but they're both taken, Does the Custodiobot count? Yeah, let's count him. So the Custodiobot, he's the one who's actually in charge of the Cybertronian archives. He's the character that Daniel and Wheelie go to when they're trying to figure out what Ultra Magnus's birthday was. I'm going to give him a C, just because we don't see enough of him to actually gauge if he would be a good partner. But the things that we do see is this curmudgeonly old man wheezing his lines and sounding like he's about to kill over any minute. So, again, we're going to use the cup logic. Marry him now, get a payday soon. Moving from Blast from the past, why don't we talk about the Autobot cassettes this time? And just to be clear, I'm not counting Blaster because he was not a Season 3 Autobot. However, we will be talking about Eject and Rewind. And here's what I found out. Apparently in G1, Eject is just so much easier to get along with. He's just a nice guy. He loves TV, specifically sports and reality TV. He just seems like a pretty chill person all around. The best way I could put it is he's a total himbo. He absolutely will be dropping some really off slang, but at the same time, he's a really well-meaning and good-natured guy. He's just a total dumbass. I'm gonna give him an A. A nice himbo grade for a nice himbo cassette. Meanwhile, Rewind. In G1, there's just not much to go off of. He likes trivia, I guess. He seems a little bit smart, but all of the Autobots seem smart in their own ways. There's just nothing going for me here. I'm going to give him a B, just because I know in another universe he's going to be a really good partner to someone. But in terms of G1 Cartoon Rewind, consider him a fixer-upper, I guess? Yeah, I am not ranking Ramhorn and Steeljaw. That's just a f***ing Rhino and Lion. I'm not doing that. Oh god, I'm going to get some hate for this. Let's get to what I think is the single worst subgroup in the G1 cartoon, that being the Technobots. Not only do I hate Autobot combiners, I really hate this Autobot combiner, mostly because in the G1 cartoon, they're all kind of just nothing. They show up towards the very tail end, and by that time, there's just not enough time to give them a proper spotlight. At the same point, we could always look at Marvel, which is what I'm going to do to try to help fill in some of their personalities. And apparently in Marvel, they're all just a bunch of raging assholes. Let's take Scattershot for instance, right? Scattershot, leader of the team. And you gotta think, he seems to be cut from the same cloth as Silverbolt or Hotshot. And at the very least, those two are good at keeping their boys together. Scattershot is an actual f***ing monster. He's looking for a reason to shoot people. And I don't want to be in a relationship with him, mostly because I'm pretty sure it ends with him shooting me and trying to plant a gun on me as a result. Strafe almost seems okay. He's a nice guy, he's smart. The issue with Strafe is he doesn't realize what he's doing. He's prone to panicking, and when he panics, he shoots. Just like Scattershot, I'm pretty sure Strafe is gonna shoot me. And then he's gonna shoot me again when I cough. And then he's gonna shoot me again when I beg for help. And then he's gonna shoot me when my body goes into rigor mortis. He's just gonna keep shooting me until eventually there won't be enough to have an open casket funeral. Afterburner's a total scumbag too. He is a seething cauldron of anger. That comes directly from his bio. He is prone to violent outbursts, including physically threatening or physically beating people when enraged to a certain extent. And all that means is this is absolutely going to turn to a domestic situation, F rank for Afterburner. Nosecone almost comes off way better than he actually is just by association. But he's a nothing burger. He doesn't look hot, he doesn't sound hot, he's a bit of an idiot, but at the very least, he's not going to shoot me, he's not going to beat me. I guess it's a C for him. So you want to know what's blowing my mind right now? Out of this team of scumbags and degenerates, Lightspeed is perfect. He's brilliant, he's generous, he's selfless, he's willing to give anything and everything, not just to the Autobot cause, but to aid those around him, no matter how small. I read this in his bio, and I actually felt my heart melt a little bit. Lightspeed dreams of flying. He wishes that he could rebuild himself into being able to take flight, but he knows that for right now, he's better off as a ground unit to continue to help supporting the Autobots. And now he is willing to put his dream to the side so that he can be a part of a larger whole as Computron. That's beautiful. Lightspeed has a genuinely touching backstory. The idea of someone so intelligent being so humble, and yet it not feeding into any form of depression or imposter syndrome. He's just noble. He seems too good for this world. He's definitely too good for this team. And it makes me realize, the only reason these assholes aren't in prison is because Lightspeed is keeping them from murdering people. He's the one thing holding this team together. I'm gonna give him an S, but I feel like he deserves more than that. I think that he should be above Ultra Magnus and RC, not because I think he's particularly better, but because I think it speaks a lot more to who he is, that he's able to bring any form of order to the Technobots. And then we get Computron. Well, just like all combiners, I'm just going to take the average of all the scores. Scattershot F, Strafe D, Afterburner F, Nose Cone C, Lightspeed S. That makes Computron a D. And just so we're clear, I had to round up. If it weren't for Lightspeed, he would have been an F, just like Scattershot and Afterburner. Okay, I made a joke about the Technobots, but at least they actually combine. Riddle me this. I want you to think about what makes a subgroup work. For the vast majority of them, it's the fact that they can combine. That in and of itself is a reason to like some of these groups. But even the ones that can't combine usually have something going for them. The Dinobots are the Dinobots, enough said. The Minibots are all great little transformers with big personalities. The Seekers are the elite vanguard of the Decepticons. You don't have to combine to be a good subgroup. And then you get the Throttlebots. They break the mold. They don't combine, and they also aren't a cool subgroup. Look, the Throttlebots are basically a bunch of nothings, just like a lot of the Technobots, but there is a little bit to go off of, so let's try, beginning with Goldbug. Goldbug could be interesting. I mean, it's basically Bumblebee after he grew up a little bit, but G1 Bumblebee is such a pill. He's such a Boy Scout. And I can't imagine it's going to get any better now that he's 40 and having to dye his hair blue so that people stop thinking that he's an old man. I kind of get the feeling that he is going to be someone who peaked in high school, and I'm just not turned on by that. I don't want to get into the bed with Goldbug. I don't want bed bugs. Freeway sucks. He's someone who absolutely is going to drop slurs, or he's going to make really, really mean, pointed insults to you. And then if you try to defend yourself, he's going to start crying. And he's probably going to be very similar to some of the other Autobots. He's going to try to pull, well, you know, I come from a planet that's dying. You don't know the trauma I go through. It's like so many of these losers online. They want to make these most unhinged jokes, but as soon as you do any type of pushback, they start panicking and pissing their pants because they need to be the most special of all the boys, and you need to think that they're funny, and also they think that you were just mean, and why are you canceling them? Why are you canceling them? I hate Freeway. Freeway gets a D. Searchlight is interesting. A pretty sour and dour bot, he's nonetheless a good spy. The only issue is he can occasionally be distracted by tiny things. Essentially, he has some form of OCD. But aside from that, there's nothing about him that's particularly off-putting. Aside from the fact that he's a little bit quiet and maybe occasionally a bit grumpy, most bios and fictional depictions make Searchlight out to be one of the more well-adjusted of the Throttlebots. So for that, I'm going to give him a B. Y-Load is just disgusting. Not in the way that someone like, say, Freeway is disgusting. No, Y-Load is just really, really, really dirty. He's a neat freak, and he compulsively cleans himself, and yet he's always grimy and covered in mud. But what's even worse, despite the fact that he is so dirty and banged up all the time, he judges others based on their appearance, and he'll make snide comments about it. So on top of being a neat freak, he's also a massive hypocrite. For those reasons, I'm going to give him a D. I just don't want to be around this schmuck. Chase is interesting. Yeah, he's a little bit of a blowhard, and yeah, he's going to constantly be bragging. He can't really back up any of his talk. He's very prone to getting beat up or not being able to live up to the potential he puts out. And yet, he is genuinely courageous. Like, maybe some of it's just suicidal overconfidence, but he is willing to put his life on the line, and he does have some genuine moments of selflessness. As a result, I find it hard to really tell how he'd be in a relationship. I feel like there'd be a lot of good days, and also a lot of bad days. Potentially more bad than good, but maybe more good than bad. Maybe being in a relationship would actually make him mellow out a little bit more. Or maybe being in a relationship is going to make him even more belligerent. I'm going to give him a C. I could see him going either way. Maybe he'd be a brilliant partner after some maturing, or maybe you need to get a restraining order. It's all come to this. We only have one Autobot left to cover, and he's technically a package deal. Metroplex, alongside his components Scamper, Six Gun, and Slammer. Metroplex, you should know, is in control of all these three. Scamper, Six Gun, and Slammer are not their own bots. They are not sentient. They are components of Metroplex. However, Metroplex's brain is so big, so advanced, so multifaceted, that even though these three are on a hive mind, they actually do act rather different. Scamper, the car, is incredibly friendly. He is very prone to anxiety and does his best to take care of all the Autobots that come into the city. He's like a helpful friend, someone who will always have your back. Six Gun is Metroplex's frustration. He is there to keep order, and as a result, he's very, very angry at times, especially when he hears about a battle that he knows Metroplex could help in, but Metroplex is under orders to remain put. And then you got Slammer. Slammer is the sadness of Metroplex. He carries the big city bot's depression and doesn't know what he could do to help. Between these three, you already have decent partners, but keep in mind, none of them are their own bot. So let's talk about Metroplex. What makes him tick? I want you guys to actually think about what Metroplex is, not just in terms of his personality, but what he means to the Autobots. He is Autobot City. He is safety. When the Autobots are in Metroplex, they are protected from the Decepticons, from any attack that might happen. Metroplex is the biggest and the strongest and the toughest out of any of them. He can take on any threat and come out on top. That's the reason why, in the G1 movie, all the Autobots immediately make a beeline into Autobot City. It was the only place they could be safe on Earth from this onslaught from the Decepticons. Even though he wasn't able to transform at that point, when Metroplex did gain his robot mode, he was constantly called in as the last line of defense for the Autobots, and he saved all of their lives more times than anyone could count. But it also belays the sadness of Metroplex. Metroplex loves every single Autobot. He knows their names. He's their home. Keep this in mind, the Autobots live in Metroplex, under his watchful eye, under his care. Many of them were brought online and grew up on Earth, all while Metroplex took care of them. And then some of them don't come home. Metroplex is filled with self-resentment, depression, and anger because of how many friends, how many Autobots that he took care of were never able to return to Metroplex. He wishes that he could be on the front lines more often. He wishes that he could take all their pain away, but he can't. He has to remain exactly where he is. If you entered a relationship with Metroplex, there's going to be a lot of bad nights. He's never going to be angry, he's never going to lash out at you, but you're going to be distinctly aware of just how miserable he is. You're going to hear the crying, you're going to feel the pain. And also, there's the tiny thing of, I don't know how you make out with a city, but you know what? Let's put that to the side. Metroplex is legitimately one of the most noble, heroic, and caring of all Autobots. And I think that that would all factor very nicely into how he'd be as a partner. He's a caring bot. He's a gentle bot. He is someone who would be an excellent father, just pointing that out, because especially considering he treats most of the Autobot army as though they were his children. As a result, I'm giving Metroplex an A. The only reason he's not an S is, again, because of his size. And that's it. The thing I realized after going through all the Season 3 Autobots like this is just how varied they are. I feel like we don't give enough respect to the fact that the G1 cartoon tried so hard to change the formula up in Season 3. These characters are covering a broad spectrum of personalities, of moralities, of outlooks. it's actually kind of fascinating to think of them all working as one cohesive unit, because on the surface, there's nothing cohesive about them. Say what you will about the other groups of Autobots, but the ARC crew were a pretty tight-knit group, but there also wasn't that much variety between them. Go back and look at my Cybertron ranking videos for the Season 1 Autobots or the Season 2 Autobots. There's a whole lot of Autobots I just describe as, yeah, they're pretty nice, but there's not a lot of personality. Or, well, they're pretty nice, but they have this one big personality trait, whoa-ho-ho. Whereas here, I feel like I actually had to consider different angles for a number of these bots. Metroplex, Lightspeed, RC, Magnus, RODIMUS, Outback. There's all these characters that either I've loved my entire life or have never thought about once, and I found myself being surprised by all of them. I mean, good God, Lightspeed is a character I want a toy of now. After learning what his personality is, I have a respect that I've never had for any of the Technobots. That's the reason why I like doing videos like this. It gives me an excuse to do a lot of research on a lot of characters all back to back, and it also is fun to think about how they'd be in relationships. And what I'd say is, there's a handful here that would be great husbands. You know, Ultra Magnus, RC, Lightspeed, go for it. There's also some here that would be outright terrible and you need to avoid them at all costs. I am looking again specifically at Sandstorm. Just like every Cybertronian ranking, there is a massive berth between the best of the best and the worst of the worst. But unfortunately, a lot of them tend to fall within the middle, and I don't think anyone's going to be too heartbroken that Wide Load isn't going to be a perfect partner, mostly because I don't think most people think of Wide Load all that often. But in any case, this was an incredibly fun video. I'm so glad I was able to make it, finally, because I've been wanting to do this since February, but it's been good to finally do a couple more Cybertronian rankings. My next video like this, I hope, is going to be making a new Pantheon using Transformers characters. I am so excited to do that one. I've been doing research for it for a few weeks now. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and hey, we'll see what we get up to next time.